address destructive narcissism. What is destructive narcissism? Destructive narcissism is defined as a pattern of behaviors and attitudes reflective of pathological narcissism. These behaviors and attitudes are troubling to others who are in a relationship with this person and have to interact with the person on a regular basis. Destructive narcissism is a cluster of destructive behaviors and attitudes, not just one or two distressing behaviors or attitudes. It is through your reactions to the person over time, which is validated by their enablers, that you can begin to identify someone with a destructive narcissistic pattern. The pattern of behaviors and attitudes are such that others experience considerable frustration, anger, and feelings of incompetence. These individuals are blamed, criticized, devalued, and demeaned in their relationships and interactions with a destructive narcissist. The attitudes and behavior exhibited by narcissists can stir up many different kinds of feelings in the people whose lives they are intertwined with. They find your weakest point and this leads you into a situation that is intolerable. When you interact or try to relate with destructive narcissists, their gaslighting and manipulations can push you into questioning your own truth, sanity, and even doubting your own perceptions, avoiding the destructive narcissist from being recognized. When you walk into a room where they may be absolutely silent, waiting for the visitor to ask how they are. They are not interested in anyone else, just for you to know their opinions and thoughts. If you leave the room, they may follow you to make sure you do not speak to anyone else and they have your full attention. The destructive narcissist seems quite unaffected and continues to wear down anyone who would even dare to think or feel differently from themselves. People are their property and they truly believe they own the people closest to them. They recruit enablers and flying monkeys by pretending to love or by offering money. Any inclination to decline or to behave differently is interpreted by the destructive narcissist as betrayal. The destructive narcissist's typical interaction produces negative reactions in others. For example, the individuals devalue others, lack empathy, have a sense of entitlement, and are emotionally shallow. They may function very well and are successful economically. Although others may find them frustrating and difficult, these individuals can be charming when charm is perceived to be a benefit. These people can be very difficult to deal with, and they have conscience instead of an absent one. All they do is intentionally, calculated, premeditated, thoroughly analyzed and planned with the unique purpose to inflict the maximum possible damage to their selected targets. As the destructive narcissist continues to make demands, the recipient of such behavior may walk away, realizing that the effort is too much to deal with. It takes a lot of energy to live with such demands. There may be such loyalty that the recipient stays in the relationship, but is clearly lacking in knowledge of what is really going on, and even if they do know, having no idea how to deal with it. The recipient of this type of behavior can be stressed to breaking point. If the narcissistic behavior continues, it may lead to abusive relationships, bullying, cruelty, suicide, and God forbid, murder. Narcissism must be faced and dealt with, either by the victims or the perpetrator. It is more likely to be the victims, as the narcissist is always right and would rarely last in a therapy room, as they would regard the therapist as below them, completely on the wrong track, and they would, in fact, think they know better than a therapist. In summary, these are the typical characteristics of a destructive narcissist. Unresponsive to others' needs or concerns. A strong self-focus and self-absorption. Indifference to others. Lack of empathy. An inability to grasp one's core self as there is nothing there. Shallow emotions. Inability to relate to others in a meaningful way. Strong admiration and attention needs. Consideration of oneself as unique and special. Grandiose, arrogant, and contemptuous. Destructive narcissism in organizational leadership. Narcissism lies in the heart of leadership, and organizations are populated with destructive narcissists. These organizations create the gaslighting layer ethical and hide their shadow side. Destructive narcissists are often recruited to drive organizational performance. But the destructive narcissist's behavior soon takes its toll. Staff attrition, low morale, and poor decision-making eventually impact on organizational performance. Destructive narcissists do not allow their superiority to be challenged, so they surround themselves with people who are prepared to remain subservient to them. Once they are established in a position of authority, subordinates will be forced into silent submission. History is riddled with stories about self-aggrandized leaders who charismatically drive organizations and organizational members to great success and profit. Yet on a psychological level, these destructive narcissistic leaders leave behind disenfranchised followers, burdened with negative experiences. Destructive organizational behaviors are characterized by psychological components including arrogance, haughtiness, and low levels of empathy and emotional intimacy. The destructive narcissistic boss can damage the mental health of their employees, undermine the effectiveness of their organizations, and, collectively, threaten the well-being of society. At a moment in history when leadership is needed to overcome the daunting challenges we face, it is a measure of the gullibility of the rest of us that we continue to believe that we need mentally disordered individuals to run our most important organizations. A destructive narcissist makes use of an array of mechanisms to protect themselves from experiencing feelings of inferiority. These defense mechanisms are triggered every time the narcissist is in a situation where his or her ego is threatened. And these automatic, irrational, and often convincing responses leave coworkers baffled, battered, and bruised. The chances of coworkers having access to their boss's history, insecurities, and twisted means of defense, however, are practically nil. As a result, the narcissist's projections are experienced by coworkers as incomprehensible, unprovoked attacks. The destructive narcissist does not recognize what he is doing, rendering any appeal to logic on the part of the victim utterly pointless. The destructive nature of malignant narcissism means that narcissistic leaders invariably cause tremendous damage to individuals who work with them, to the organizations that employ them, and to the societies that their organizations are meant to serve. Destructive narcissists have a detrimental impact on the mental health of their co-workers. Working for a narcissistic boss whose idea of happiness is self-aggrandizement and denigrating others eventually takes its toll on psychologically normal people. Destructive narcissism exists because of a malfunction of nature and nurture. It results in an adult with a fragile sense of self-worth that must be protected at all costs, costs that are paid by their co-workers, their organizations, and by wider society. Having destructive narcissists in positions of leadership and power at this critical time in human history is a recipe for global catastrophe. Given the immensity of what is at stake, their destructive influence is something we must put an end to it. Thank you for watching this video. Please, remember, knowledge is power.